Hey, so I am Sarah Ferber. I'm here with Food First NL. And we're a provincial nonprofit organization working on the right to food and food security in Newfoundland and Labrador. And so we've connected with folks in Alberta a number of times over the years and through different ways, but primarily related to school food. And so that's how Wanda and I connected recently via Farm to Cafeteria Canada. And she asked me to come and tell you a little bit about us and what we do in case that can be helpful for your work. And I'm available afterwards if you have any questions or you'd like to follow up on anything that we're doing. And so I just thought I'd start off giving you a little bit of a context, some of the stats that we're working with here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So we have a really high rate of food insecurity here in the province. More than 1 in 5 people were food insecure in 2022. And we're pretty excited that the new proof information just landed yesterday, I believe. So we'll be taking a look at that to update our numbers, but we're not expecting a decrease. And so we do have a high number of people in the province who are experiencing food insecurity. And then, unfortunately, because of that, we have the highest share of children living in food insecure households of any province. So, a number of our young people are food insecure. And so, that is a big part of why we have a focus on advocating around a national school food program and different types of policy and programming focused on schools and children. And so just like everywhere across Canada, we saw a real increase in food prices. So for us in Newfoundland and Labrador, across the board, it was an average of 12% in our food prices. But when you get into certain parts of the province, and I'm sure this is the case in Alberta as well, it's very geographically varying. So like, for example, on the north coast of Labrador, this goes up to 18.5% in food price increases. And with that example of the north coast of Labrador, which is primarily Indigenous communities, to be able to afford the nutritious food basket for a family of 4 would be 129% of people's income. So if that is living on income support. So the benefits that are available here within the province are not meeting the needs of the people here. They're not indexed to inflation, and people are struggling quite a lot with food insecurity. So that's the context that we're working in. And then other issues around diet-related chronic disease and access to food and agriculture and things like that as well. But our focus as an organization is on food insecurity and the right to food currently. Just give you a bit of information about us. So we've been around since 1998. So we are just approaching our 25-year anniversary as an organization. We're provincial in scope, so we are working across all of Newfoundland and Labrador. And our vision is a province where everyone can eat with dignity and joy. And that's a change for us in terms of our vision. We did have more of a food security definitional kind of vision and mission up until last year. So we just had our big change of our vision and mission for the first time in 24 years. So that's excited. And we're really excited to be working with this new vision of a province where everyone can eat with dignity and joy. And our mission, as I said, is to advance the right to food in Newfoundland and Labrador. And we approach this work through 4 pathways, and I'll get into those really briefly in a moment. And they're advocating, organizing, taking action, and valuing people. And so this is some of our team here in the photo. I've got my eyes closed there on the one side. And the reason I put this slide in here is because Wanda said there might be some interest sort of in how we're organized and how we're funded, like the more internal operations of the organization as as a fellow provincial organization. And so currently we have 16 staff. We're based across the province. We have a mix of full-time and part-time staff. We have something that might be of interest is a new cohort of 5 regional food animators. So these are 5 people that are based in each of our, we define the regions aligned with our health authority regions. And so they are working at supporting community-based efforts and policy and convening in each of their 5 regions. And that's a model that we adapted from what's been done with Farm to School BC. So they have their regional animators focused on animating farm to school work in their province. And We learned a lot from them and kind of adapted that to our work here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Our funding is a mix of provincial and federal grant funding, and then we also work with a few different foundations. And we also have two sort of fledgling social enterprises that are both less than 2 years on the ground. And so those social enterprises are working to bring in some income so that they can be self-sustaining. And at this time, we're not receiving any funding through public fundraising or through sponsorships. So just a little bit of background on us and how we operate. And so I'll really quickly go through those four pathways that we have that guide our work. So the first one is advocacy. Our advocacy priorities right now are around food insecurity, a universal school food program, increased procurement of local food by public institutions. So right now the focus is on schools and healthcare settings. Supporting strengthened food sovereignty for Indigenous communities in the province. And then this one at the end, we haven't really started work on too much, but we'd like to explore more as evidence-based action on the climate crisis. So the next of our four pathways is organizing. And I think that's really the bread and butter of what we do is bringing people together. And that's certainly been the case with our school food work, particularly. We play a role as a convener here in the province. We're often bringing people together at the provincial level, but also trying to make those types of connections at the Atlantic Canada and national level, wherever we can as well. We do a lot of work around trying to provide timely and accessible information. So that looks like partnering with research groups like Proof wherever we can. Right now, we're working on updating the living wage information here in the province and different kinds of data type work that we do. We've had quite a lot of focus in the recent years on the emergency food sector in light of everything that's happened with the pandemic and trying to reimagine what can happen there. Oh, my slide's not advancing there. There we go. So the next one is of our goals is taking action. So this is what we're actually doing on the ground, our own implementation type work. And so just to say that like Food First as an organization kind of goes right from on the ground community work up to systems level policy work. So we take on as much as we can across a diversity of places in the food system. So we've been working quite a lot around trying to improve access to cultural foods in institutional settings, working with small scale retailers here in the province, providing as many kinds of diverse supports as we can to smaller community-based food programs throughout Newfoundland and Labrador, and then working on different types of policy levers. And then the last of our four goals is around valuing people. And this is more of an internal goal, but we try to embed the voices of folks with lived experience in all of our work. And we also try and take a progressive and inclusive focus on our own internal HR policies and procedures. And we do quite a lot around equity learning and equity policy within the organization. So that's a little bit of the bird's eye view of who Food First NL is and what our focus is. And I'll just go through some highlights of our different programs. And there's a lot more content in these slides than what I can touch on, but I will share the deck with Wanda for afterwards. And then I'm going to spend a bit more time on the school food piece of what we've been working on recently. So I mentioned we have two different social enterprises. The first one is called Food on the Move, and it's a mobile pop-up grocery store. So what it looks like in real life is similar to a farmer's market table, but what we're selling is not all local food. It's a variety of items, both local and wholesale, and the focus is on providing affordable food. So this pop-up market comes to community centers that are in social housing neighborhoods throughout the St. John's metro area. It's providing what we can find as the freshest, most affordable produce in the area, and then selling it at an affordable price and making it more accessible physically to folks by being right in their neighborhoods. We've also been working in Labrador, which is the part of our province that's more northern and has a larger Indigenous population. on the anchor cohort. And this is with a national organization called Nourish. This is something you might be familiar with. And so we've had a cohort project going there for a couple of years that's trying to improve access to traditional foods in the health system. So getting some of the cultural wild foods into healthcare settings and working with different healthcare leadership on improving the food system. I mentioned briefly to our work in the charitable food sector. So we have a project called Rethinking Food Charity that was an in-depth consultation process over the last year and a half or so that was talking to folks who are using the food bank system, people who are running the programs, different stakeholders and policymakers to try and reimagine that sector, especially in light of the growing demand and limited capacity during the pandemic years. And so all of that culminated into a report with 23 recommendations that we're now working to share through education and advocacy in the province to try and improve the charitable food system here. The second social enterprise that we have is called the Western NL Food Hub. And this is a local food hub that provides an online store where producers in the region of Corner Brook can put their different products available for sale. And then we aggregate all the products in one location so consumers can purchase from a number of different producers in the area in one sale. And then they pick up their orders from our food hub site. And we do this as well as an employment partnership with a local agency that provides employment opportunities to youth that are at risk. And something new that we've got in the works is our lived and living experience advisory group. So because we have this interest in having the voices of lived experience as part of all our work, we've helped to form this pan-provincial group of 12 people who currently have had experience with food insecurity. They're self-directed, they're defining who they are and what their priorities are. And they'll be looking to both inform what we do, to also weigh in on different policy and programming things that are happening more at the provincial level, and then to take on some projects and initiatives that they're passionate about themselves. And there's a lot of capacity building and team building and things part of that process. And this is something that's kind of unique. We're not aware of, there's other lived experience groups like this that are topic area focused or municipal, but this is the first one we're aware of that's a provincial level food security focused lived experience group. And so we also have a project focused on retail food. We're working with a number of small retailers who are trying to source more affordable, accessible foods for the communities. So in Newfoundland and Labrador, we're primarily a rural province with a number of remote communities. Over 80% of our communities don't have a full service grocery store. And so many of those communities, if they have a retailer, it's a small retailer, it's often locally owned, limited in what they're providing and facing a lot of barriers to be able to provide what they do. And so we're trying to work with these small retailers to build their capacity and to be able to offer the best possible food to their communities. And then we do a number of things that are more like general, which is supporting community action within the province. So I mentioned our 5 regional food animators that are working in their regions to support and convene. We also have a number of online sources of information like a resource website. We have a monthly newsletter and social media accounts. And we respond to a number of outreach requests that are outside of our funded projects. And I think this is something we've taken a closer look at in recent years. We just get so many requests to help out with different food programs, to participate in academic research, to be on different committees, to give presentations and all of those things. And so we were trying to find ways to bring that all together. And that's one of the reasons we're really excited to have these regional animators to be able to really focus on all these requests, because up until now, they've been very side of desk. And then, I'll just talk a little bit more about our advocacy work. We really try and focus on addressing the root causes of food insecurity. And so that often looks like advocating for different income solutions and on equitable systems level solutions. So the things that are priorities for us right now, we're pretty actively advocating for a guaranteed basic income here in the province. We've been involved a lot in the national effort for a universal school food program. Wherever we can, we're supporting efforts around Indigenous food sovereignty and also around procurement of local food in our institutional settings. So in the school food system work that we do, we're really excited. We're taking a big leap with our capacity right now because we've, for the first time, received enough funding to support a full-time school food role. So up until now, school food as like an area of work has been on a number of different desks in our organization. For example, our CEO has done most of the advocacy type work. I've been doing a lot of the supporting schools behind the scenes and participating with national partners. And so now we've finally been able to secure a full-time school food program coordinator salary. So that's really exciting for us. So that we're in the hiring process now, and that person's going to get started in the next month or so. And so the main pieces of work we've been doing around school food lately is that we sit as the regional lead organization for Farm to Cafeteria Canada. So we are, supporting all of their rollout of their different programs, their grants, their training, their resource development, everything that they're working on. We're trying to bring as much of it as possible to Newfoundland and Labrador and support their mandate nationally. We're also really actively involved with the Coalition for Healthy School Food, advocating for the National School Food Program. And then similarly, we've been doing our own advocacy around school food at the provincial level here, and those two things are really complementary. And we've also been preparing to lead some province-wide consultations to inform universal school food programming. So we're still hopeful that we'll see the national program roll out soon. And we are also really excited about a recent provincial announcement that expanded our school food funding for lunches. The provincial government has committed to make school lunches universally available for pre-K to grade 9 here in the province. So right now, I think probably somewhere around a third of the province's pre-K to 9 schools have access to some kind of lunch program. A lot of schools have no lunch program. And so now they're looking at expanding the funding to try and make that available across the board. And so we'll be leading some consultations, this new program coordinator that I mentioned, to find out what could that look like. So if the national program comes down and with this new provincial funding, what are the priorities? What is it going to look like in different parts of the province? Because we know it's going to have to be exceptionally tailored region by region and school by school based on different capacity. What does it look like in remote schools? What does it look like in schools that have no kitchens or any kind of equipment currently? What does it look like in rural versus urban settings and all of that? So it's going to be a really exciting time for us with school food in the next year, supporting all of this consultation so that we can provide recommendations to the provincial government and to the school food providers for how all of this can roll out when it happens. And then on the day-to-day, we also work quite a bit with individual schools. So we'll get contacts from schools. Can you give us a presentation for our nutrition classes? Can you help us set up our school garden? We want to apply for a farm to school grant. Can you assist us with that? So we do a lot of those day-to-day school support things as well. And that has been myself doing a lot of that, but now more recently, it'll be our regional animators stepping into that role, helping out the schools in their areas. That's everything I had prepared there around Food First NL, and I was speaking quickly, and it was a lot of content there. I'll share the slides, but happy to follow up if you have any interest around any of what I said.
So Sarah, can you put I will get back to everybody on our contacts board with your contact information and the slide presentations, but if you want to put your email into the chat, that would be awesome.
Sure.
Awesome. And so I think we should do follow up on anybody that has questions, and you might see anybody's hand up, because I don't. No, I don't. I'm just wondering, when you talked about your universal K-9 program, is it a pay what you can, or is it a universally free?
Yeah, so right now, all that's been announced is the funding for that. Like they've announced, and it doesn't have a dollar amount attached to it that's been publicly shared. It's just the announcement that they will be making that universally available. So I think it's going to take quite a while to figure out what the details of how that looks like are. Um, and so right now we do have one school lunch provider called the School Lunch Association, and I'd encourage you to check them out. They're really interesting, and their website is schoollunch.ca. Um, and so they are in, I believe, around like 35 schools right now. It might be more than that, mostly around the Metro St. John's area. They've been around as long as us, over 25 to 30 years, and they provide a pay what you can hot lunch. So they're a charitable organization. Um, and the way that you order it, it's in my child's school. You go online, you order your child's meals for the month, and you decide how much you're going to pay and how you're going to pay. And the school and the teachers and anyone at your child's school never receives any of that information. So they don't know whether your child has paid the full amount or a partial amount or not at all. You also have the option to donate more. So like if you're able to, you can top up what you are paying for your child's meals to help to support other kids. And that's been going really successfully. Now they have seen an exceptional increase in demand for number of students using the program and number of families that are choosing to pay less or to pay not at all for the lunches over the last couple of years, as you can imagine with the changes in food costs and that. So this announcement is really exciting because we do know that that's going to infuse more funding into that particular organization to allow them to expand into more schools, but also to allow them to meet the growing demand in the schools that they're already in. But yeah, I'm not sure what it will look like in all the schools, whether it would be pay what you can, but I think that accessibility and equity will be a big piece of the work in terms of what we're looking into.
Yeah. I think I will have to get back to you because I think your province-wide consultation is a stellar idea, and that's really what we need in Alberta because there's so much already going on. We just need to connect the dots so that if the national school food program comes down, that we already know who's doing what and
Yeah,
yeah.
and I see Avni, you have your hand up. I hope I said that correctly.
Yeah. So, yeah, one of my questions was how long have you been around? Because I feel like, and you already answered that, that Wanda, this is like the model of Food First NL is great for Alberta Food Matters, like
Amazing.
all those different goals from advocacy to organizing, like from the community up to policy. Like I think, we all in every food conversation I have, it's always a struggle of, well, where are you, because everything's so circular, well, where are you interjecting into the food system? At what point is your interest? And you guys are covering it all, so that's so great. What's the population of Newfoundland Labrador?
It's very small, so we're I think we're pushing 550,000 people. So
Okay.
population wise, we're size of a middle to large city in Ontario. So very different conversation when we're in some of the national circles.
Yeah, that's
Um,
asking. And students, do you know number of students?
No, I don't know off the top of my head the number of students, but we do have a provincial university and college, and then a number of like private colleges, and they would mostly be concentrated in St. John's and Corner Brook.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can also share our strategic framework that we just put out last year, which is where we go into a little bit more detail on all of that stuff that I said. So you might find that interesting, just in terms of like how we're laid out. And oh, what was I gonna say too? I lost it there, but anyways, yeah. So I'll share the presentation and the strategic framework. Oh, I remember now. So when you're thinking about, that's what we're doing with this consultation, is just getting ready for the money, basically, like hoping that the programming and the funding will land and that we'll be ready to use it in the best way possible here in the province. And so if you're interested in how we're planning on doing that, you could take a look at that Rethinking Food charity report, and I can share the link afterwards because we did a very similar process for the charitable food sector. So basically what we're looking at doing is kind of duplicating what we did there, but talking about school food instead. So you can kind of see like how that rolled out in terms of the types of things that we did. There was a provincial survey with people who are using food programs like food banks and meal programs, but also with folks who are not, to try and understand why they're not. We did focus groups, we had a provincial gathering, like there were a number of different steps involved, and I think we'll be doing something very similar around school food. So
Okay.
Awesome.
That'd be great. Yeah. And so when the province allocated some funding, you said recently, are they limiting the money to just food, or are they allowing like the various school food programs to, direct the money where they need it?
and so yeah, and I'm not sure yet because that's where the details are not available yet. Like the announcement was just made. Um, I think it will be flexible, just knowing like how other types of fundings along these lines have been. I think it'll be more to do with funding to organizations and that they'll have a fair bit of freedom in terms of how they use it. But certainly it is harder here to get money for the food itself than for, the infrastructure or the HR or the other pieces like that.
Interesting. Okay. And then just a small question about the lived experience advisory panel. I noted that you do pay the people on the panel. I'm curious how much.
So they're paid the same as we would pay any consultant. So we have like an hourly rate. So the same thing as if we were bringing on like someone to help with design or evaluation or whatever, things like that. So they get an hourly wage. It does take some finagling to be able to make that work within our income support program because a number of the people here participating in the lived experience group are receiving different kinds of social benefits, and then we want to make sure we work with them so that those benefits aren't clawed back because they're being paid for this work. So there's a little bit of a juggling act there, but as much as possible, we're trying to pay them like equivalent to any expert that we would be working with.
Yeah. Great.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for those questions, Adam.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, Sarah. We will be in touch. I'm sure that we've got lots of from your template of what you did. We can get back to you and figure out more details. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. You can reach out anytime. And I think I just transferred back the hosting stuff to you, so you should be good.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll sign off now. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too.